Good evening, darlings, and a very warm welcome indeed to Sunday Night Live. Now then, the Conservative Party have announced that if they are re-elected, they are going to reintroduce national service. So 18-year-olds will have an option. They can effectively volunteer to become part of His Majesty's Armed Forces for a period of 12 months, for which they will receive not payment per se, but a stipend, as it's being called, to help deal with associated costs and so forth. Alternatively, they can volunteer for a different kind of national service, which would involve giving up 12 weekends of their 18th year, and they would be volunteering with the police or the NHS or so on. Now, this is going to be mandatory, although it has been said that there will be no criminal charges for anybody who refuses. What do we think of this idea, darlings? It's not entirely without precedent. The last time that we had a July general election was in 1945, where the Labour Party swept to an unexpected victory. And 2 years later, into that parliament, they introduced national service in 1947. So there are memories of the past here, but what do we think? Would it be a good thing or a bad thing? Is there an age divide? Are we going to feel differently about it if we are older, which I think we all are, so we wouldn't have to do it? And how would we have felt about it when we were 18 years old? It's a model that works exceptionally well in many countries around the world, specifically Scandinavia, where 80% of the young people who do this say that it is 100% positive experience, and they would absolutely recommend it to their friends. But what are your thoughts? I would be very interested to hear. And let's see who we've got with us. Come on without, come on within. You can't do better than the mighty Quinn. But more on that story later. Dino Dad is here and says, beat that, Jimmy, because he was first cab off the rank. Andrew Buttigieg is here. Peter P is here. Good evening, Boaty. And all matrons here. Good evening, everyone. And indeed, Ross. The M11 is here. Hello to some of my favourites above. And the yummy, scrummy Boaty, of course. Well, of course. And hello to you back. And jolly well see how you like it. The mighty Quinn is with us. I see a name change there. Good evening, Boaty and all. It's gin and tonic time for our Jimmy. Well, chin chin, my dear chap. Enjoy it. Bottoms up. And cheers to all of you who are enjoying a no doubt well-earned libation. Or is it well-earned? On that subject, how has your day been? Has it been a lazy Sunday? Have you been at work, or have you been out and about enjoying the middle part of a bank holiday weekend? And of course, darlings, I need to know, we need to know, all of us, what you've been eating. Oh, yes. Your good health. Sophie is with us and says, hello, everyone. One flower isn't feeding it, says Peter Pete. No, indeed, it's got the old droopy drawers, hasn't it? Poor impotent flower, says the M11. The water needs changing, says Matron. Good evening, all, says Bad Books. Sophie says, hello, Boaty. How are you? I'm in bed as, oh dear, the mental health's been a bit up and down today for Sophie. Sorry to hear that, my lovely. Keep your head above water. We all have bad days. It's a new world in the morning. The sun will rise. And try and have a positive mindset and make tomorrow a better day for you. We have it in Finland, says Peter P. Well, indeed, yes. Boaty of the Home Guard, says Andrew Buttigieg. Jimmy Quinn thinks that it's a good idea. Matron says, I think they're trying it to, one, get a decent army, etc., back together. Well, I don't think that can possibly be the intention, really, can it, Matron? Because they're only going to be there for a year. There are only going to be a certain number of military places, 30,000, which will almost certainly be oversubscribed. So it's going to be a competitive entry flow. But I don't think there's any semblance that that it's being intended as any sort of serious addition to the actual military might or otherwise. And two, trying to avoid paying a decent wage to UK workers. Need to offer proper decent apprenticeships as entry to a good trade. Well, I don't see how it would be trying to avoid paying a decent wage to UK workers, because it's not the government who are normally responsible for paying a wage, it's the employers. Now, you could argue that that the government are responsible for civil servants, but you couldn't argue that completely. And oh, sorry to hear you're feeling bad, Sophie, says Matron. I'll try and have a chat with you tomorrow. Oh, that's very kind. Barry Scrotter, who is with us, says, hope it passes quickly for yourself. The M11 ate sausages and mash and broccoli today. Bog standard stuff. Oh, sausage and mash are a wonderful thing. Matron ate baked beans for lunch and air-fried vegetables for dinner. That's a weird thing. I mean, surely you didn't just eat baked beans for lunch. Surely you had something else. And surely you had some, sorry, stir-fry veg, not air-fry veg. My apologies. Barry Scrotter had minced lamb pies. Pies, plural, note, not just one. With vegetables, potatoes, gravy, and indeed mint sauce. Andrew says, I agree with needing more apprentices. We used to have technical schools that taught all trades, but the government at the time decided to close them. Now we have a massive problem with lack of trades. Well, the problem is that all young people want to go to university and have a party, don't they? So, you know, it's one thing making the apprenticeships available. It's another thing as to whether people want to take them. Perhaps that trying to make university available for all, perhaps that was not actually such a good idea. And maybe we need to be a bit more stringent about the degrees that our young people go on to do, because a lot of young people, as far as I can see, spend a hell of a lot of money in 3 years of their life doing a degree that's ultimately pointless in terms of long-term future employment. Interesting subject, this. Dino Dad Ross says, hello, gang. Last night's dinner, which was Sunday, was a homemade chicken curry. Oh, good for you. Barry Scrotter's asking Matron if she's seen this week's Inside number 9. And she hasn't. And she hasn't watched any of them yet. And she says, shush. Sophie had burger with burger cheese and chips. And Matron hasn't eaten any eggs today. So there we are. Jimmy's just querying with Emma to see if there was any onion gravy involved in her sausage, mash, and broccoli. And the M11 is quizzing Matron as to whether cucumbers have played any part in her daily routine. And apparently they haven't. It's been an egg and cucumber free day for Matron. What else has happened today? Well, Charles Leclerc won the Monaco Grand Prix. Andy Murray has been knocked out of the French Open, so that makes him a dour Scot rather than a plucky Brit, of course. Red meat distraction for voters, says Bad Books, covering 40 years of Tory cuts to armed forces, meaning it is a shadow of its former self. Is that necessarily a bad thing? I mean, it would seem that that physical warfare seems to be being replaced with cyber warfare. The one thing I didn't mention yesterday when we were talking about electric vehicles and the way that they can spy on you, the thing I didn't mention was this. As well as electric cars feeding back on everything that you're doing in the car, it's possible for the electric car companies, or indeed the government controlling those companies, to control the cars remotely. And one of the major threats that the powers that be are concerned about are the effects that this could have. So, for example, there are plans going on in many countries, as included, to work out how you can bring a country to their knees, simply by exploiting remote control of electric vehicles. So, for example, by controlling electric vehicles, you could completely gridlock London or any other major city, and that would have the effect of bringing society and the economy to a grinding halt. Also very useful for assassinating people. So if somebody that you want to take out is driving an electric vehicle along the motorway at 75 miles an hour, then by taking remote control of the vehicle, you can just slam the brakes on, absolutely full wallop, overriding any safety systems, thus ensuring that every vehicle behind them will pile into them and they will be killed. It's a lot easier than jabbing a poisoned umbrella tip into somebody's calf, isn't it? Boaty, are you ready for the 500 brake horsepower canoe? Asked Paddy Scrotter. I'm ready for the canoe. That sounds like really good fun. I heartily disapprove of the 500 brake horsepower Rover 25 thing. I think it's an absolute nonsense and just a way of destroying a car that otherwise could have been saved. But there we are. My message to you keeps on getting deleted, Sophie, for some reason, says the M11. But let's try it a different way. You can chat tomorrow if you need. Oh, that's very kind. Isn't it wonderful, this little community thing we've got going on, and we all put our arms around each other and keep an eye out. That's lovely. Mark on Motoring is with us and says, hello, everyone. Drones, says Ross. Drones are the future, are the way of future wars. On the physical side, then, yeah, but cyber warfare really does seem to be the way forward. It's a lot easier to cripple a company through cyber warfare than it is through physical warfare, isn't it? Hey, Mark, says Ross, I will watch your video after the live. Oh, there we are. Shut the electricity grid down, says Andrew, then everyone is buggered. Again, cyber warfare. There are more admirals than ships in the Royal Navy, says Jimmy Quinn. And I wonder if that's absolutely true. I suppose it could be. Is that just said for effect, Jimmy, or do you know that? Is that an actual fact? Bad Book says, cuts across the board, but physical warfare still happening in Ukraine. Yes, it is very much still happening in Ukraine. Maybe that's something that we should talk about. What should be done about Ukraine? Should we supply them with warfare? Should the West get involved? Should the rest of Europe get involved? Or do we have to live in constant fear of any nuclear power and allow them to do whatever they want to do for fear of retribution. And how's that going to work with China? It's yeah. If you were in charge, or if you were part of a committee that were in charge, what would you suggest doing about the Ukraine situation? Ignoring it, supporting them with weaponry and financial aid, supporting them in terms of trying to keep the population safe by offering visa schemes so that they can relocate temporarily or permanently here, or should there be boots on the ground? Should there be European boots on the ground? At the end of the day, a foreign power has invaded a sovereign country in Europe. And let's not forget that. Russia have invaded Europe, and they're trying to take ground. So if they're allowed to take Ukraine, then what next? Where do you draw the line? Now, it's a very interesting thing when it comes to the nuclear threat, because if you look at things logically, then the nuclear deterrent or option would never be used, because if you ask anybody at what point do you deploy the nuclear trigger, then the only thing that most people would agree on would be as a retaliatory nuclear strike. So in other words, if there's a nuclear strike against you, then you issue a retaliatory nuclear strike. But again, there's no guarantee of that. Nobody in this country knows whether we would issue a retaliatory strike, because when a new prime minister comes into power, they have to go into a little room on their own with a little form. And on that form, there are 2 tick boxes. And the question is, if a nuclear strike were to be issued against the United Kingdom, would you wish to issue a retaliatory nuclear strike? Yes or no? And they tick one of the boxes. That is then put into a sealed envelope, and it's hidden away somewhere very safe. And nobody ever, ever, ever looks at it unless there was a nuclear strike. So nobody knows whether Boris Johnson would have issued a nuclear strike. Same goes for Tony Blair. Same goes for Theresa May. Same goes for David Cameron. And the same goes for Liz Truss, although I'm not sure if she was in office long enough to actually tick the box. And the envelope is simply destroyed with nobody looking at it when that prime minister leaves their position. So no sane person would ever allow a country to have that situation. So nobody's going to issue a nuclear strike, because the response is a given. They will go for what's known as salami tactics. So in other words, they would never put another power in a situation where they would have to issue a strike. So, and you could argue that Russia are doing exactly that. They're employing salami tactics. So in other words, you gently, slowly but surely move your troops, then you invade another country, you occupy some land, you take it, and what will happen? What's happening in Ukraine at the moment? There'll be a bit of a fuss and kerfuffle, but the other powers are not going to put boots on the ground, and they're certainly not going to fire off a nuke at you. So in the end, you will get away with it. And that's what I predict will happen in the Ukraine. Russia will take Ukraine. But then what happens in another 10 years' time, when from Ukraine, they move on to take the next little slice of the salami? And there will never be a point where, unless they actually invade your country, then there's never going to be a point where you're going to get involved in what could become World War III. And even then, it would only be your country that got involved. Because if Russia invaded, I don't know, let's say Russia invaded Poland, are the UK going to get involved? No. If Russia invaded Germany, are we going to get involved? Possibly not. So, until they actually put their boots on your country's soil, then you're not going to do a fat lot about it, are you? No, where did I get to? About here, wasn't it? Denise7 is with us and says, hi all and a jolly good evening. We've had so much rain today. Hasn't been the best day, has it? I can't get excited by electric vehicles, says Mark. The thought of autonomous vehicles is terrifying. Well, it is a bit, isn't it? We had loads of rain too, Denise, says the M11. They should be doing the 500 HP horsepower engine in Fred the Super Shed. Oh, God. I like that one, Ross, says Barry. Dear God. I try not to think too deeply about war stuff, says the M11, because it negatively affects my mental health. Yeah, that's understandable, but it's also a first world luxury, isn't it? I would have a fairly strong bet that many Ukrainians chose not to think too deeply about all that war stuff. But then when your country gets invaded, you kind of have no choice, do you? And again, that's why Russia probably will get away with it, because people prefer to bury their heads in the sand and think that, I don't want to think about this because it's not directly affecting us or ours. I mean, if we were Ukrainian people living in the UK and we had family who were having their houses bombed and our family members were being killed, then we probably wouldn't have the luxury of not thinking too much about it in case it affected our mental health. And unfortunately, that is a malaise that strikes around the world. And that's why division is not a good thing, because we and many other societies, there'll be things going on in the world that are awful, terrible, but they're not happening to us. They're not happening to our family. They're not happening in our house or in our street or in our town. So we don't think about it. And that's the problem with the world. That's how come evil can be allowed to happen, because as a global community, we choose not to think about it until there's no choice and we absolutely have to. Whereas if we were that big old mythical melting pot, where, as John Donne so memorably put it, no man is an island entire of himself. Any man's death diminishes me, for I'm involved in mankind. Then we would all be standing up and saying, well, innocent people are being killed. Children are being killed. Houses, possessions, elderly grandparents are being killed. How can we all just go on about our lives as if this isn't happening? How can we just choose not to think about it? And if we all did think about it, then maybe we'd all bloody well do something about it. And if every country in the world if the civilians, not the military, but if the civilians decided to mobilize and said, look, this isn't a world that I want to live in, where these kind of things are happening, where innocent children are being killed by rockets. That's dreadful. And if civilization as a whole said, no, we're not having this, bugger the politicians, bugger the governments, bugger the nuclear threat, we're not having it. And if everybody just got themselves together, made some sandwiches and just marched or got on boats or whatever, and we all just went to Ukraine and sort of said, look, there's 30 million of us, Russia. You're not going to be able to kill all of us. Now, we're not having this. Now, give your heads a wobble and bugger off. Go on, bugger off back to your own end. And if we just, as a massive swell, 10 million people just ran down the Russian forces, then, yeah, some people would obviously be killed, or, but you know, I mean, you could have a megaphone and give them a message beforehand and say, look, we know that you're soldiers. We know that you're brainwashed into doing what you're doing. We know that some of you don't want to be where you are and don't want to be doing what you're doing. You are our brothers and sisters. We are all together. What you're doing is wrong. Don't listen to your government. We're going to stop you from doing it. And if that means that some of us die and some of you die, then in the bigger picture, then that's something that we're going to have to take. And then if just 10 million people mowed down the Russian forces, and I don't mean killed them, I mean, if you literally, just as a 10 million strong global community, walked them down and just crushed them, not literally, but just took their weapons off them, I don't know, did whatever with them, then that would be an end of it. That would be an end of it. And maybe people would think twice about it if they knew that the whole world, if you've got two countries, one invades the other, and the rest of the world says, hang on, nah, not having this, not having this, and the rest of the world just walk them down, it wouldn't happen. Nobody would try it. They try it because they know that they can get away with it. And think about it. Think, use your mindset, right? If somebody went into your neighbor's house, a neighbor that you liked, and some people from another town went into your neighbor's house, killed the children, killed the grandparents, and said, right, this is our house now. Would you be all right with that? Would you just think, oh, I don't want to think about that. That's grief. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing. And yet people are okay with it. I don't get it. I really don't get it. But there we are. Maybe that's just me. Long live Fred the Shed and all who sail in him, says Barry. I think Western governments are hoping Russia will bankrupt itself before we have to get involved in physical warfare, says Mark, just like in the first Cold War. Yeah, well, that was kind of a hope, wasn't it? And that seemingly was kind of the plan to starve them into submission by cutting them off financially. But now that they're all palled up with China, then that's not going to happen because China's got all the money in the world. My 2 cents worth coming from Andrew. Take out Putin. I think the underlings probably don't have the appetite for continuing the war. With so many sanctions, the future leader should pull out of Ukraine. I don't disagree with that, to be honest. I don't disagree with that. M11, says Mark, the burden of knowledge weighs heavy. It's a subject I've thought about in great detail in the past, but sometimes you need a distraction. It sounds similar to the situation in Gaza, says Andrew. Land grabbing by the other mob. Yep, pretty much. Oh, it is true, Boats, says Jimmy. My son told me he did 25 years in the Navy, and his last ship was the HMS Ark Royal. He was the last petty officer on the aircraft carrier. I did the tick box thing at home, says Ross. If I ever get served creamed rice pudding, I may or may not leave home and never return. Oh, rice pudding, how is that? Oh, God. Lord Stiff Upper Lip says you can't take out Putin as he's in control of Russia. It would create a power vacuum and it would all fall apart and that would be even worse, like in Iraq. Would it though? Because it would all fall apart internally. It would fall apart from the inside out. And I would imagine that they would be so busy resolving their own internal power struggle that they wouldn't have time or the organizational logistic capacity to worry about an occupation or an active war. I mean, it's got to be worth a try taking him out, hasn't it? Or what about, I mean, okay, it would be hypocritical of me to say that all of this is wrong, but then to say that whacking Putin would be okay. So what about taking him out literally? Putin is literally a war criminal. He is a wanted man. So what about if we got all of the crack forces of the West together and we literally took him out? We took him out of Russia, went and grabbed him, put him in handcuffs. You know, John Thor and Dennis Waterman could run after him. He'd try and climb a wall. They'd grab him by the scruff of the neck, give him a couple of digs, and say, "Right then, Sonny, you're nicked," and chuck him in the back of a transit van and take him to The Hague and put him on trial as a war criminal and then lock him up. That would be the same thing as whacking him, wouldn't it? But we could take the moral high ground then, because we would be doing things properly. So maybe that's the way to go about it. Maybe that is the way to go about it. It'd make a brilliant episode of the A-Team, wouldn't it? I mean, the A-Team would get in there and take him out, no problem. I mean, all right, B.A. Baracus might have to go on a plane. You know, they'd have to put some drugs in his milk or something. But would he have to go on a plane? He wouldn't have to go on a plane. They could drive there in the van, couldn't they? You can drive to Ukraine. Admittedly, not something I've ever done. I always flew to Ukraine, and I don't know what it's like now, but when I was going there, it was a weird thing because the plane kept descending and descending and descending, and you're thinking, well, we're just over some farmers' fields here. What the bloody hell's going on? Are we about that? And this is British Airways, you know. And I'm thinking, well, are we about to crash? And then suddenly you come into land in the middle of these bloody fields, and it's an airport. Who knew? Quite a scary airport when you get in there as well. When the Soviet Union collapsed, it was like the Wild West over there, says Mark. Yeah, but over there, they were too busy dealing with all of their shit to be causing shit in other countries. That's the point. Don't they say that Putin's potential successor is more of a nutcase than he is? Ask Bad Books. I'm not sure on that one, to be honest. DM11 says, I don't ignore the war, it's awful, but I had to step away from thinking deeply about it because it was significantly affecting my mental health and making me unwell. And Mark says, you're not alone and it's not worth making yourself ill over. I had a job representing workers in a napkin factory in Moscow, says Ross. It was the Soviet Union. The A-Team were either OAPs or dead now, says Bad Books. Unfortunately, says Baddy Scrotter, wars of one kind or another will always be. It's like molehills. As soon as you flatten one, up goes another. World peace would be fantastic, but will never happen. Yeah, but why? Why? I think it will happen, but not for a while. And I think something catastrophic will probably have to happen for it to. I mean, surely as a civilization, surely we evolve. Things change. We don't chemically castrate or imprison people for being gay anymore. We don't accept child abuse anymore. We don't think that marital rape is acceptable. So why do we think that it's okay for mass murder to take place, which is effectively what warfare is? Why do we as a global community accept that? I don't know. And I don't know what the answer is, really. I've always accepted the fact that life on this planet is fragile, says Barry. If we don't destroy ourselves, the sun will one day. Oh, well, that's absolutely true. I mean, the planet is a finite thing. At some point, the sun will. This is a cheery live stream, isn't it? Money, greed, ideologies, religion, especially war in the name of religion. You can't call the 18 because George Peppard got upset that Mr. T was earning more money. Is that true? Is that actually true? Ah, I'm trying to figure that out. I'm wondering now, is that actually true? Maybe. When did Mr. T do Rocky 3? Maybe he did Rocky 3 when he was still doing the A-Team. And as a result of doing Rocky 3, maybe he became a bigger star and demanded a bigger payday. It doesn't matter anyway, says Ross. Apparently we're going to be taken over by talking chimpanzees. And Emma agrees with Barry when Barry said, "You bloody started it, Boaty." I mentioned it once, but I think I got away with it, says Matron. Well, I was just planning to talk about national service. I don't know where all of that came from. All right, well, let's change the subject for the last 20 minutes then and talk about something a bit more cheery. I don't know. What would you like to talk about for the last 20 minutes? It's a bit more cheery. 25 minutes, actually, so we've got plenty of time. Talk about cycling, says Peter P. Oh, God, we know how well that goes, don't we? Bloody hellfire. I know you guys hate it when I start talking about cycling. What are your plans for Monday, Boaty? Well, I'm going to the yard. Oh, excuse me. Food and sex, but not in that order. What, is that what I'm planning for Monday or what we should talk about? I'm always happy to talk about food and sex. Yeah, let's talk about food and sex for 25 minutes. Plans for Monday, I'm going to the yard. I'm going to have a nice takeaway lunch. And we're supposed to be sorting the caravan out or trying to. I'm swapping some cars over. I'm taking one. I'm coming back in another. God knows, no idea what else is going on. We'll probably just play it by ear. I am determined to have a good lunch, though. Mustard is very keen to move away from the takeaway thing because he has takeaways all the time. Whereas for me, it's a treat. Monday's my takeaway day. It's a real treat. I look forward to it. So if Mustard's going to take a curry or something tomorrow, then sod him. I'm still going to the Milkstone Road and I will have my own takeaway. And that means that I can have what I want instead of having to go to Istanbul all the time. So if it's just me tomorrow, I'm going to the International Chippy. Haven't been there for ages and it's amazing. It is absolutely amazing. But yeah, swapping the cars over, all of that sort of thing. Lewis Hamilton is fueled up, ready to get me there. And I will be coming back in. I can't remember the name of the car. I can't remember what it's called. What's it called? Oh, Christine. Christine, I think. Don't know whether it's named after Christine Keeler or Christine Hamilton. Right, so we were going to talk about food and sex, weren't we? So, yeah, let's talk about the International Chippy. If I go to the International Chippy tomorrow, I will have, now then, I'm going to be torn. They do an amazing doner kebab. It's all sloppy and disgusting and wonderful. And they do the best chips I've ever had anywhere in the world, ever, bar none. They are amazing. So I probably have the doner kebab with chips, I think. God, I'm really looking forward to that. Whoa, what? I should cocoa. Where are we? Peppard was already a seasoned actor, says Mark on Motoring. Well, yeah, he was in Breakfast at Tiffany's and everything, and apparently thought himself the main star. Personally, I pity the fool. Well, he kind of was the main star, wasn't he? But like I say, it depends when Mr. T did Rocky 3. Food and sex, all good. Specialist subjects for my mastermind application. Well, go for it. Go for it, matron. What sex? Asked Lord Stiff Upper Lip. Oh, cast your mind back. It's what we used to have when we were younger and better looking. Bad Books had a beautiful walk this evening with the dogs on Home Beach, Norfolk. 17 degrees and watched thunder and lightning out at sea. That sounds really awesome, actually. We could talk more about camping and stuff. I'm still really thinking about that. And I'm still looking at tents. The joys of whipped cream, says Peter P. I have an 18-inch Mr. T with a pull string who has 3 model comments and a toolbox full of tools. Might be worth a bit now, says Ross. Oh, it could be. Christine is named after the car that went insane, Stephen King. Oh, okay. Passion fruit is the least sexy food, says the M11. Oh, okay. Feature 12. What's the sexiest food? What's the sexiest food? Me and Sasha, who was my second or third fiance, we had some awesome nights when we'd been to the Spring Meadow in Droitwich. We would go to the B&Q, I think it was, car park, where now this is where I miss Cheeseburger, because Cheeseburger knows all about this. We would go to the car park where Charlie's kebab van was parked, and we would get 2 monster kebabs, and we would go back home, which back then was the flat above the showrooms. But it was when I was still poor. So it was before the flat was all done up and done out and had central heating added and a jacuzzi and all of these really amazing things. It was an amazing place when it was done. When I first moved into it, it was a pre-war building with no central heating, open fireplaces, completely exposed to the wind and the elements, and it was bloody freezing. And it was it's a big old 5-bedroom place. You try heating that. And so in winter, oh, it was terrifying. There was a massive walk-in pantry. You're washing up liquid would freeze. And in winter, we used to get back with these 2 massive kebabs. And to us, it seemed the most natural thing in the world to clamber into bed. We had a Cala gas heater in the bedroom. And we would clamber into bed with our kebabs and eat our kebabs. But because we were 2 incredibly horny young things who fancied the arse off each other, and we really did, it used to take us about 6 hours to eat that kebab because we'd be knocking spots off each other while we were, oh dear. God, I loved those nights. What a great way to keep warm as well. But yeah, we'd leave the pub at 11 o'clock, go get the kebab. So it's probably going to be about midnight when we got home. And it would be 5 o'clock in the morning by the time we finished eating our kebabs, which you might think would be cold, but they weren't, because they were warmed by the heat and activity of our bodies. Oh God, those were brilliant times. Oh dear. We're still friends, by the way, me and Sash. I've said this before. I wish I was still really good friends with all of my exes. God. Oh, those days. Those days. After this week, I may have got on top of my car for a bit, says Barry. I'm sure really wants to be scrapped. Excuse me, but I won't let him go. Oh dear, excuse me, just yet. Oh, bloody hell. Bad Books is hopefully having an old-fashioned charcoal barbecue tomorrow, unless rain stops play. Having the in-laws over, so sex will not be involved. My ex, the wizard, says the M11. And he's known as the Wizard because he gave Emma a wizard's sleeve, if you were wondering. Thought it was a good idea to get passion fruit involved. Passion fruit and sex just don't mix. No, you totally need a kebab for that. I'm off swimming tomorrow with the family, says Barry. Hopefully this time my trunks won't split down the back. Oh dear. Are anchovies a good sex food? Asks Andrew. Barry says, no, Andrew, too salty. True, says Andrew. With the split trunk, says Barry, I must have looked like the going swimming version of the Village People. So embarrassing. The M11 says, the bum of my swimsuit wore out at a water park once. Spent the rest of the day with my bum crack winking at everybody through the see-through fabric remains. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Anchovies are not sexy, says Emils. Too salty and fishy. Are scampi fries sexy? Asked Peter Pete. Yeah, totally. Totally. Boaty never proposed to Cheesy though. No, I never did. As a young kid, I found swimming goggles brilliant. All those girls' legs underwater. Sexy food, says the mighty Quinn, is Japanese Wagyu with all the trimmings and a bottle of Dom Perignon. And then forget about the sex. So it's not really a sexy food if it makes you forget about sex, is it? Oh dear. God, it's a while now since I've had a proper all-night session. Probably not up to it anymore. Squirty cream might be too dairy for Boaty. Yeah, I wouldn't get down the squirty cream route. I'm trying to remember what things I have deployed. I haven't really gone down that route in terms of, applying food to the body and that sort of thing. Never really gone there. I've just had like really extended sessions where you kind of need to eat. so it's not using the food as sex aids per se. It's just, having a nibble while you have a nibble, if you know what I mean. Ah. I mean, is it just me? If you have a really extended session, if you have like a 12-hour session or something, it can't just be full on all the time, can it? You need distractions and other things and refreshments. Surely to God. And then, sorry, I'm just going down memory lane now, remembering some good times. I'm thinking hard about what food is sexy, says Barry Scrotter. I can think of many things that are sexy, though. Alan Partridge answering his hotel door with his face covered in chocolate was hilarious. Apple pie, says Andrew. Nibble while having a nipple. Sex spoils food. Would you rather have nice snacks on the side? Yeah, on the bedside table. Oh, says Matron, it's been such a long time since I had a 12-hour sesh. Well, it depends what you mean by it. Feels like a really long time for me. It's certainly been months. God, what a depressing thought. Oh, hey ho. Hey, pumpkins. What? You weirdos. The only good things that last 12 hours is a nap, says Ross. Melons, says Andrew, predictably. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Oh, and then now we're talking about lemons. Oh, the film American Pie, in case you missed the reference. I did, Barry. I don't know what the film American Pie is about. I know the song American Pie, but that's about it. Right, we've talked about sex. Well, we've got 9 minutes left. What should we talk about? Homemade is better. Oh, hang on. What are we talking about? Melons? No, can't be that. Can't be homemade melons. Oh, apple pie. God, do McDonald's still do apple pie? Didn't it used to be the kind of same temperature as the surface of the sun, and they had to put a warning on it? Pottering pie, blimey. If you haven't tried lemon, you don't know what you're missing, says Emma Lemon. So that could be taken in one of several ways, couldn't it? Okay, well, as we've gone down the sex route, we've got 8 minutes left. Let's do this. What is your most memorable sexual experience? Or what are some of your most memorable sexual experiences? That should take up the last 8 minutes without a problem. Sex on the beach at midnight in Cyprus. That was the first time I'd done it on the beach. That was pretty memorable. In an airplane, on a train. We talked about that the other night, didn't we? That was Lisa. She couldn't go a whole journey without getting a bit. Interestingly, and this is something we could talk about as we're talking about memorable sexual experiences. None of, I don't think any of my most memorable have been like fantasy based. Like you might fantasize about a threesome, having two ladies, that sort of thing. And they wouldn't be in my list of most memorable. My most memorable were with somebody that I was head over heels in love with, and who were head over heels in love with me. And it just, and for whatever reason, there was a particular, like on the beach in Cyprus, when we bought the house in Cyprus, and oh God, the world just seemed an amazing place. And that first night, we went for a walk on the beach, and it was deserted and it was tranquil because where we bought the house in Cyprus was tiny little place. Very few houses there. Like I said, one restaurant, one bar. Beach was deserted, and we thought, well, we were high on life. Life seemed amazing, and God, that was a great night. That was. Here we go. Right, here we go. They're starting to come in. Right, Matron's going to start the ball rolling. Me and two guys in a jacuzzi. Someone put bubble bath in it, and the bubbles were up to the ceiling. It was more funny than sexy. Then someone else ran off with my clothes and hid them. Okay, right. Well, that's not floating my boat, but there we are. For Ross, it was rogering my best mate's neighbour. I was 21, she was 40. Hubby was a truckie, and she was a nymph. Mark on Motoring says, oh, I've had a sheltered life, and as a gentleman, I don't think I can divulge. Lord Stiff Upper Lip says, Jason, can you tell me, do you ever get people in the restaurants that sit down to a lovely meal, have a row, and then leave? I could never leave nice food behind. Yeah, that happens. That does happen. Yeah, it happens. Not regularly, but yeah, it's not a one-off. Yeah, we get some spectacular arguments in the restaurant now and then. It's like an airport or a supermarket, whatever. It's kind of all human life is here, and one of the things is we're quite a, those of you who've visited will know that we're quite a compact and bijou restaurant. It's an intimate atmosphere. And if you're standing behind the bar, you can hear stuff. And you try not to listen to it, but sometimes it's impossible. And you see and hear some lovely stuff. And because of the way that we operate, customers very often become friends anyway. So it's almost like having friends over for dinner, except you charge them for it. But yeah, we've had the arguments thing and somebody walking out and leaving the food and somebody being left to pay the bill. Um, that can present opportunities, because if there's an absolute lovely lady and some bloke's acting like a total dick and walks out and leaves her, then it's really easy to be the knight in shining armor and say, are you okay, my lovely? Can I let me get you a drink? Blah blah blah. And then, when he's left me and I've got to pay the bill and blah blah. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. These things happen. This one's on me. This one's on the house. And get him a few drinks, and then an hour later, say, would you like to come back to my place? Your bloke's a total asshole. But you see it all. Family disputes. We've had fights. Oh, we had a thing today. There's a local lunatic in the town where the restaurant is. He's a pain in the ass. He's ex-military and he's a raving alcoholic. Now, maybe he's got PTSD. Maybe there are good reasons for it. He's not a totally unreasonable bloke if you catch him when he's not too pissed. But when he's pissed, he is a nightmare. I've spoken about him before. If you remember on Christmas Day, he's the guy that I had to physically throw out of the restaurant. Stupidly, on Christmas Day, they let him in, thinking, poor sod, he's on his own on Christmas Day. And I physically had to remove him. And he's like an unexploded bomb wandering around the town when he's pissed. Excuse me. He owes us money. He wasn't able to pay a bill when we were still serving him. But he's an absolute nightmare. If you allow him, he'll come in, he'll already be drunk, he'll get even more drunk, and then he'll start abusing the customers, abusing the staff. And he will totally refuse to leave under his own volition. And as I say, you try and deal with it as well as you can. On Christmas Day, I've got everybody in celebrating Christmas. They let him in when I was in the kitchen. I was like, oh, Christ, no. And he was there and he'd had a drink and he paid for it. So I couldn't, oh, God. As soon as he started playing up, then I, out. Physically out. But he was off on one tonight, and I saw him wandering around the town, causing havoc with the traffic because he was staggering around the roads, and he was heading towards us. So I was standing guard on the door, and I said to the guys, I said, on the pain of death, I dragged them outside. I said, do not let him into the restaurant under any circumstances. And he went into the Indian restaurant that's about 6 doors down from us. I went out to do a delivery. He wasn't immediately ejected from the restaurant, so I thought, oh my God, they've let him in. Good luck, guys. When I did the delivery, and when I came back, and I'm trying to drive past the Indian restaurant, it's blocked with police and ambulances. And all I can see is the drunken guy is in handcuffs and being marched into the back of a black Mariah, or as we used to call them, a police van. I don't know what the ambulances were there about. So I don't know if he was just drunk and passed out or something, or fell over, and they called an ambulance for him, or whether he tried to start a fight or did start a fight or somebody or hit somebody with something, and that's what the ambulances were for and why he was being arrested. I honestly don't know, but he certainly had violent intentions. He would certainly always threaten this, that, and the other. He threatened me, which is when I lifted him off his feet and threw him out onto the fucking pavement. Oh dear. I mean, before we had to totally fall out with him, I did try and look after him a little bit. And he came in with, he actually had a meeting with some sort of social worker, caseworker type person in the restaurant, in our restaurant. And again, you know, you can't help but overhear some things. And they were trying to talk to him about him controlling his drinking and the fact that he's legally not allowed to see any of his family and all of this, that, and the other. So I don't know what kicked off in the bloody Indian, but there were a lot of, there was a police van, there were 2 police cars, and there were 2 ambulances. So something bloody happened. I don't know. I mean, it's tragic. It's tragic, really. That's probably how I'll end up, darlings. Smashed out of my face on Chablis, wandering the streets, trying to beat people up and not pay for food. Where did I get to? Oh, yeah, Ross had rogered his best mate's neighbour. Mark was being a gentleman. Oh, the M11 says, a night with a man who wanted to fulfill many of my fantasies. That was good too. Oh, I remember you telling us about that. But that implies that you said something before and I can't see it. So I imagine it must have been deleted by the auto mod. You do realise Boaty is asking for wonk material for later on, says Betty Scott. I'm really not. I've got memories for that. And it's not something that I tend to do. Oh, too much information. The M11 was busy in the other room with the guy that matron rejected. Dear God. Did I mention the Thai massage in Bangkok? Asked Ross. Holy hell. Rejected? Laughed my bottom off, says matron. I was worn out. This sounds like a very interesting jacuzzi. We might need to go into this in more depth, which is what I imagine some of the gentlemen involved may have said. I've got one with the goth bird, says Betty Scrotter, years ago, but she put a gagging clause on me. Mr. Stephen Paddy from Port Sunlight and the Whittle, the Leisure Peninsula, says, when's the last time you came into the restaurant who didn't pay the bill? Hey, when's the last time you come into the restaurant who didn't pay the bill? I bounced when he tried to pay. Not sure what you're going for there, Mr. Stephen Paddy. Non-payers. I have got an active non-payer at the moment, but he wasn't in the restaurant. It was a takeaway. I'll tell you about that another night because it's a bit too late. I told this story about Bishnu and the non-payer, didn't I? He locked him in the staff changing room. I loved that. I did tell you the story. I'll tell you again sometime if you didn't hear it the first time. The only thing I will say, don't mess with somebody from the Gurkha regiment, because if they decide that they're going to become annoyed, it's not going to end well for you. So this is what's got you tonight, Boaty. Thought there was something, says Barry. Kind of makes me think how Rick Stein might be as a drunk. Saturday Night Fever has just started on Channel 4, says Lord Stiff Upper Lip. And Barry Scrotter says, you can tell old Rick likes a drink. I don't know him. I don't really watch him. Better get to 1 million subscribers first, Boaty, says Barry Scrotter. I can still see it, says the M11, but it said, what? There must be a load of deleted comments because these aren't making sense. But foreplay in a car on the way to the North Yorkshire Moors and then sex on the moors. Can't people just go out for a quiet meal without bringing out half the emergency services, says Ross? If you go to a McDonald's near me, says Andrew, you're most likely to get a side of knife with your order. And Barry Scrotter agrees and says, my local McDonald's has security guards. On that note, darlings, I'm going to bugger off because I need to get stuff sorted for tomorrow. I need to sort out paperwork for the car, all of that sort of thing, make some basic preparations, berate myself for the fact that that I forgot to buy sugar. So I'm going to struggle with my morning coffee. Food news from me. If you're in the Facebook group, you'll have seen what I had for lunch. And tonight, I'm doing chow mein again. I'm a chow mein machine. And to prove it, oh, still a bit. These are the noodles that I cooked, rinsed in cold water, and I'm now allowing to dry before I stir fry them. And I'm going for a slightly different one tonight. A slightly different one. I don't have any bean sprouts, so it won't surprise you to learn that I'm not going to cook any because I haven't got any. I'm going to go really heavy on the onion, and I'm going to shove a bit more meat in there than I usually do, if you'll forgive the expression. And I'm going to really try and spice this one up. Given that it's nighttime, not lunchtime, I'm really going to put quite a heavy. I haven't done this before. I've always gone down the classic chow mein route, but this one I'm going to really try and spice it up a bit. I'm going to put fresh chilies in there. I'm going to use ground cumin, ground coriander, hot paprika, turmeric, and anything else I can think of to whack in there. Some white pepper probably, and yeah, so it still counts as a chow mein because chow mein literally means fried noodles, and the noodles will be fried, but I'm going to go super hot on it, super hot. And as I say, no bean sprouts, go heavy on the onion, see how that turns out. And there we are. Barry Scott says, oh, Boaty, I'll watch The Greedy Italians when I get a chance. Seen them before, but I love that series. Yeah, I'm putting the 2 Greedy Italians up. There are 2 episodes up. I think I prefer it to The 2 Fat Ladies, and I adore The 2 Fat Ladies, so that's saying something. But then I love Italy. I love Italian culture. I have history with Italy. As a lot of you know, I ended my career racing for an Italian team. I love the culture. I love the food. I love the language. I love the music. God, I love the women. Oh, how I love the women. So I think 2 Greedy Italians is fantastic. It's a bit more of a watch. They are hour-long episodes. But for those who don't know, it's 2 Italian guys, really quite famous, not celebrity chefs, but famous chefs, Antonio Collicchio and Gennaro Cataldo, and they came over to the UK. They left Italy for a long time. They go back to Italy. They try and discover what's changed. They go to various places. They're looking for various things. It's really well done. And I genuinely think that you might enjoy it. That's why I put these things up. They're not my own content, but like the 2 Fat Ladies and various other things, I put them up to make them easy for you guys to find. So you don't have to search all over YouTube. And I try and improve them. I improve the quality. I edit them if they need it to make it more watchable for you. I put them on a playlist so you can watch them all. So you've got all of the complete Two Fat Ladies series 1, 2, 3, 4, plus the obituary, all in one place, all in one playlist. I don't earn any money from them. They're not monetized. Same with the Two Greedy Italians. I do it because I love them. It makes it easier for me to watch. And as I often say, I like to put stuff up that I love for those that I love, because you might love them too. So if you saw Two Greedy Italians, but it came out in 2011 and you'd like to watch it again, they're there for you. If you've never watched it, please do. It's lovely. It's absolutely lovely. And just like Two Fat Ladies, it's lovely because it's real. Now, Two Fat Ladies were, okay, they were manufactured. They didn't know each other and they were put together, and it just so happened that the chemistry worked. They became the best of friends and the magic and the chemistry happened on camera. With the Two Greedy Italians, then one is the master chef. The other was his apprentice for many years, who went on also to become head chef. But they're genuine lifelong friends. Antonio is gone now, bless him. And it's just a lovely, lovely watch. So do give it a watch. You might enjoy it. Doing national service, get shot, at least I'll get to see a doctor. Oh, that's cynical, bad books. But yeah, there is some truth in it. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow, says the M11, for Emma and Boaty's Monday Night Live. Any new jingles tomorrow, asked Peter P. I believe that there are. Can't wait, Emma, says Andrew. And the M11 confirms, yes, new jingles and new features. Oh, dear. Boaty, you could create your own cooking channel, says Baddy Scratter. Yeah, maybe I will. I love Italy, says Baddy Scratter. Only been once though, but did a good tour around. Lake Garda was absolutely stunning. My team was based on Lake Garda, so that's where I was based, and yeah, it really is. If you're interested, the team that I raced for was Carrera. Called Carrera because it was sponsored by Carrera Jeans, and it was quite a big team in the late 1980s and the early 1990s. Good night, everyone. Once again, the pleasure is all mine, says Mark. Andrew says good night. Ross says goodbye. Buddy Scott says, oh, right, okay, that's banging on about a car, isn't it? Yes, Boaty, says Buddy. They were great blokes. I also like Raymond Blanc. I like Raymond Blanc. I've eaten at his restaurant more than once. Marcello Gandini, says Bad Books. Lamborghini Miura and Citroen BX designer died earlier in the month. He did, but Gandini, he also designed the Countach, the the one that came after. What was it? Oh, the one that, oh God, I can't remember what it's called, but Gandini was an absolute legend. Good night, everyone, says Peter P. Good night, all, says Matron. See you at 10 p.m. tomorrow. Mr. Stephen Parry is looking forward to tomorrow and says good night to everyone. The M11 says good night. Everybody's saying good night. So it's good night from me too, darlings. Have yourselves a safe and peaceful night. Take incredible care of yourselves. It's bank holiday tomorrow. I hope you have a good one. And if you're not doing anything special, then I hope you have a relaxing day. And for Sophie and anybody else who's had a bad day with the old upstairs department, I hope tomorrow is better for you all. I can't wait to catch up with you tomorrow night for Emma and Boaty's Monday Night Live. Stay safe and take care of yourselves. See you tomorrow night. 10 o'clock. Don't forget, I'll be putting the warnings out there early. Oh, yeah, you can be sure of that. All right, darlings, much love from me and a very good night. Pachu and indeed a fried noodle bosh.